Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Genius Metaversity. Thank you for joining us today for your March edition of Genius Metaversity podcast. Our title today is How AI is Accelerating the Web3 Wave. Of course, your host is Roger James Hamilton, and his guest is Eric Pulia. Roger will be telling you a lot more about Eric when he introduces him. I just want to thank you all for your dedication. Lovely to see you all here every month. Lovely to have you as part of our community. You might notice that I'm a little warm today. It could be because I'm getting married in the morning. But of course, I wouldn't let you down. I'm here to welcome you. And so if everybody's ready, I'm ready to hand over to Roger. So I hope you have a wonderful hour, guys. And I'll be here taking it all in myself as well. Enjoy.
Hi, it's Roger Hamilton with another amazing Gems podcast. And today we have Eric Pulia. We're going to talk everything about AI and the metaverse. Hello, Eric. How are you?
Great. Hi, Roger. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're always meeting in different parts of the world. Today, I'm guessing you're back in Santa Monica?
Just got back from seeing the last U2 show at the Sphere in Las Vegas, and I just arrived back in LA.
Oh, wow. How was that?
It was great. Really immersive, really expert creative execution on the visuals. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was there with Eva during the F1 where we met you as well, and we went and that's when they had the big show that they do in the Sphere, which is like just showing the Earth and the whole story of the Earth. Mind-blowing space. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's well done. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're here talking about the idea of how we move forward with environments and what things look like when we go into full 3D reality. I'm going to jump right in so everyone who has not yet had a chance to connect with Eric gets an idea of Eric's background and the amazing things that are actually connecting up the things that Eric's been up to with what we are now doing within Genius as well. And so anyone interested in anything to do with the future of AI, with the metaverse, with Web3, how it all links together, the session for today is how AI is accelerating the Web3 wave. With Eric himself being now part of our board, as well as all the incredible things that he is doing. He's the founder of 6 companies, including US Interactive, TM Forum, CSC Agility Platform, and now is currently the chief executive of vatom. And as I mentioned, now on our board as well. But what I would love to do to just kick it off, Eric, because we obviously met first with Peter Diamandis at the Abundance 360 Summit, is while you have got your vatom platform, which I'd love for you to share with people what made you start it, what was the reason behind the thinking of it, and then we're going to kind of link that to the whole concept of the Genius Cities and what you're currently doing with FII as well. But maybe we start with the company vatom and just basically the whole idea behind it and what's been happening with it over the last couple of years.
Yeah, sure. So vatom's been through several incarnations from R&D and proving out the model, licensing its code into the world to build an ecosystem. Currently now pursuing a direction of fulfilling the mission of what we believe is the next generation of human engagement, meaning that the digital wallet, digital identities, and these non-fungible digital objects can create dramatic increases in attention, in communication, in gamification. And we believe that we're really on the cusp of a new way to create engagement modalities. And that could be in virtual spaces or in augmented reality, but ultimately, it's about a brand or an audience or a community communicating better with the people involved.
And you took an early start by working with companies, because at the time when you were launching, and we were looking at some of the use cases at the time with Decentraland, with the Sandbox, and this is where they were going very much like kind of B2C and trying to create almost like a second life where you can come in and like watch a concert, or you can come in and like learn something, in the metaverse. And we know that had this massive boom. And then with the whole crypto side, also then had a bust. And now is actually obviously making a comeback. You took a different approach, which was actually focusing at working with a number of companies, and where you were looking at it almost like from a promotional point of view, where it was as much, and then sometimes even more, the idea of having a crypto wallet and the idea of having rewards than even necessarily going into a 3D space. So can you share a little bit more that approach, and more importantly, how when you're talking about Web3, that idea of ownership and that idea of like the next generation of the internet goes way beyond just the idea of being in a 3D space?
Yeah, I mean, the vatom really started not with the idea of the first, what we call smart NFTs, although it did originate that concept. The concept came from something even more fundamental, which is the idea of self-sovereign ID, that every single individual on the planet ultimately would own their own data in a blockchain-based system that was permissionless, and that the data itself, which is now largely bifurcated across many, many different parties who exploit it for their own benefit without your permission, et cetera, you would own that identity and own that data. That's the first premise. The next, and that's fundamentally important to advance the internet, because today the internet does, and the web does not really have a notion of identity across experiences. So the first thing is you enter each experience with your own identity. The next thing is this idea of ownership. So if you are someone, you can now own something, right? And if you are someone that's persistent across, let's say, websites, I'm showing up to this, now I'm showing to Genius, now I'm going to this. Each of those websites now has me there with my stuff, right? So ownership is, to me, not within the confines of the database or the silo that I happen to be in. So now I've got these two concepts. The last concept is I'm myself, I own my things, and then who else is there, right? That's the social piece of this. The internet is not essentially a place where you can run into people. This is a relatively new phenomenon. Now, if you look at the, as you pointed out, the metaverses and the kind of multiplayer games that grew up during that period, the first thing is they grew up as games. And then the next thing is they became very popular, not because they were inherently popular at the time, like Decentraland and Sandbox, et cetera, is because there was a gambling frenzy. People thought, like, oh my gosh, maybe NFTs as instruments of speculation instead of engagement, where we focus, might have legs related to this scarce digital land. What it really turned out to be is that those are games. And if you want to play that game and you want to remain in that game, and that might have value within the game, like CSGO skins or what have you, then that's a game you can play. But independent value of that land is really not what makes a metaverse. Our view of a metaverse is that it's a natural extension of the internet. The internet started with static pages. It went to dynamic pages. It went to social media where you could read and write and have user-generated content, and then start to socialize with people. As you get to the next level, we're now breaking down the barriers between what is our digital lives and our physical lives. In our physical lives, we look around, there are people, places, and things. In our digital lives, it's more informational. So now as we add people and places and things as a natural evolution of the web, you can now start to think of it as a meta layer, right? I come as myself, I'm a person. I have my things. So these are the digital objects on blockchains that have independent ownership of where I am. And then you've got the places. So now you're actually treating the website as everyone would have a come inside button. And now you're there, it's a place, you can run into other people who have their things. So now you're starting to equate how the brain sees the real world more seamlessly with how the brain understands the digital experience. And that's what we thought would be interesting. So the analogy of where vatom went with this is, rather than say, here's a game, carve out your space in it. And I do think there's a place for that. I mean, there's incredible things to do with Roblox, and I'm a huge fan of Fortnite and what they're doing. But this is different. This is a better website, not a better game. You can use gamification techniques, as Genius does really well, to motivate and to drive behaviors. But it's a better use of the most important ubiquitous communication technology since humankind began, the internet, to now extend it to these elements that will create a more social opportunity and true ownership. And that's going to change a lot.
Right. Yeah, I still remember one of the best slides that I saw at the very beginning when people were just getting this idea around Web3 and the idea of Web 1 being all about read and Web 2 being about read and write. So everyone was able to kind of like, get on social media and create their own content. And Web 3 is read, write, and own, which is going way beyond, because now you're actually integrating it more beyond just media and communication to the entire economy, to everything, right? So that you don't have to be going through banks, or you don't have to be going through the stock market. Like, you can actually have all these different tools which are very blockchain enabled, and at the same time gives everyone back trust, especially when what can you trust nowadays? But if there's a way to always know that things are on the blockchain, that there's an actual history to them, that has to be the future, because as we're seeing with AI, getting to a whole world of distrust where you have no idea what's real, what's not real, or who owns what, or who created what, actually. And I want to share this because I think where this gets really interesting is that, we obviously have been working together with Vatom since we did our summit last year, and it's been incredible every time that we're connecting up. And this is even before we've even started with our wallets and giving everyone a chance to be earning gems with their avatars, and opening up and unlocking spaces based on what they've been able to earn or learn, and what's been happening more recently as we've actually built that out into our kind of 3D spaceship, which is our mothership. All of this, what's been really interesting is, I didn't even realize after we'd met on Vatom, you had got so involved with Peter Diamandis in FII, which is very much city by city. Miami's a perfect example of the kind of city where they created their own crypto coin, where they basically started really thinking about how do we build out our own metaverse and concept of Web3 within a city versus just waiting for the country to do it. And obviously we're seeing not just cities, but smaller countries, whether it's like the likes of UAE or Singapore, really start to embrace this whole idea that the economies of the future actually are going to be driven largely by those that move faster, economies of speed instead of economies of scale. I'd love for you to share the link between what you're now doing with AI and what you're doing with FII, and how you see that all linking in with the whole Web3 vision that you have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Web3, as I see it, there's the traditional Web3 idea of pure decentralization, the decentralized internet. There's Web 3.0, which I prefer to think of more of a superset of that, which is the next generation of the convergence of these exponential technologies, including the blockchain technologies, that now gives us a new opportunity to solve some of humanity's greatest challenges at scale. And this is what FII is doing. FII has a kind of a unique role in the world, I think, right now, because it meets more than just one. So WEF is incredible. It brings amazing people together, but it's once a year. A lot of the same folks, but maybe with more of an emphasis on the funds and how the capital can be allocated towards these great challenges. As Peter Diamandis says, the greatest business opportunities are the world's greatest challenges. So by identifying the things that the world needs from a perspective of investment, I think we have a lot of practical energy and attention going to where it should. And so FII has brought together these great minds, and it's my privilege, I guess, to co-chair the AI Coalition, which is one of the areas that is a consistent presence there that would apply across the board to all the different areas that might matter: sustainability, climate change, housing, areas as diverse as education and scientific discovery and healthcare. So AI plays a role across all of those. And as I mentioned, this notion of a convergence of exponential technologies means when you're looking at solving a problem, you now have far better tools than you did before. And every time you wake up in the morning, there's this like doubling it up. It seems it's not that fast, but it seems like it is. And so where convergence with Web3 starts to become extraordinary to solve really significant problems. So one of the things we're doing there is we're looking at how FII might play a role in advancing these causes and actually start to put things forward. It reminds me of one of the projects that an FII co-chair, Caroline Yap from Google, is working on with the government of Singapore. It's called the AI Trailblazers program. And I find that really a phenomenal project to look to learn from and adapt. What they've done is they've mapped out across every aspect of private industry, what are the top most important projects that could create the largest impact, and then rank them. And then went so far as to define them and start to fund them. If they exist, people can step forward and say, I have something. If they need to be funded, the government has said they'll put $750,000 per project towards accelerating those solutions. So bringing AI to the forefront is really critical. And the other thing that Singapore has done, which I think is a model, is they've decided to invest in people over 40 learning about AI, which normally, like the new technologies, you leave behind the older folks and the younger come in. This is something which has been recognized that if you're going to be a smart city, you're going to need smart citizens who are enabled with the superpowers that these brings and not left behind. So we're learning from our members and from their projects and kind of coalescing that at FII to try to create something that matters.
Super interesting, and we're going to dive deeper into this whole vision of smart cities, genius cities. But just from everything you just shared as well, and how these things and how quickly they're moving together, I want to just make this link between, what happened with the early days and theory of Web3 and now the reality of it using AI as well. I think a lot of people saw this clip of Jensen Huang talking just a couple of weeks ago in Dubai at the World Government Summit around the whole concept of sovereign AI. And you were talking about sovereignty, right, in terms of sovereignty data. And I'd love for you the moment to just explain sovereign AI, because the first time I really heard about this was you when you were sharing the whole point of it. But he talked about sovereign AI and why this is the future of AI. He also basically said this was going to be very much around cities and around countries where basically they are owning their own AI, so you don't have the likes of Gemini and what it's done recently with its images being controlled by someone in America when someone might want something different in a particular city. But I want to kind of make a link to this. In fact, maybe we'll just go into sovereign AI first, and I want to link to this to Trailblazers and what you just said about Singapore as well. So can you share for everyone that doesn't know what the concept of sovereign AI is?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up, Roger, because it's one of my favorite projects, and I'm really excited about this. And I just think it's so important. I've been heading up this initiative called the Cultural Preservation Initiative. And what it does is it first you recognize that one of the most significant opportunities and threats from this exponential curve of AI is the notion of preserving culture and potentially having it homogenized by the exponential curve of adoption across healthcare, government, education, and something else that we thought would be the last area that AI would incur upon, creativity. It's actually the first. And people, not that you're lazy or one is lazy, it's just that when you have this superpowered companion helping you on things, and it's instigating you to think about stuff and giving you ideas and bouncing things off of you, that companion, or co-pilot as Microsoft calls it, can't help but influence and drive, and it only knows what it's been trained on. And it's only as good as it's been trained. Sometimes it's even training on itself, like in this infinitely recursive, horrific cycles, like feeding cows beef or something is a horrible thing to do. And so what ends up happening is if you don't act swiftly, the culture that you care about most could very well end up being just steamrolled over. Now, if you're a leader of a country or you're a leader of a community, even a city, what is your job? You have a job that has to do with the physical protection of your citizens. You might put up walls or you might fight people who try to invade you. But it also has to do with the preservation of what makes that unique. What is that culture? Because if you didn't care about that, you might as well get rid of the borders and just let it ride, right? So there's something interesting about your ancestry and their bedtime stories and recipes and the things that gets passed down from generation to generation, the customs and the norms and the way of doing things that really matter, and I think gives the flavor to the planet. And so you can just imagine that when you watch a sitcom, right, of something in the United States, of talking about Morocco or Guatemala, it looks so stilted and so wrong. So what's going to happen very similarly is this sitcom view of every culture, or the culture being wiped out altogether. So what's obviously necessary is that while people are alive, because most of this information is in people's heads, or certainly not in areas that are already out on the internet, which is largely Western canon, we need to come up with a way to gather that information and to aggregate it and to validate it into a trained set of local models, right? That can stand side by side with the more national and global models. And this is a super important project that I think every country will engage in.
What's so important about that is everyone seeing the limitations of the big tech companies having like one main AI, whether it's like ChatGPT or whether it's like, you know, Gemini. And the issue with that is that we know that diversity, you know, culture, it comes from a multitude of different individuals of different cities. And what is super interesting is seeing that, you know, we are moving towards a world where everyone's going to have teams of AI, and each one's going to have a different perspective, a different culture, a different set of values, and it's the actual combination of them which makes the biggest difference. And where this links in with Web3 gets really interesting in terms of you know, what's even validated, what's not. I want to share this, which basically goes from the idea of sovereign AI to what you just shared, which was you know, the kind of examples being given, right? So you mentioned, you know, Caroline Yap and Google AI team and what they did with Singapore. So this happened last July, and that was where Singapore government asked, you know, Google to come help them create this 100 solutions in 100 days. And then from there, they brought the top companies as well as startups, as well as government departments together to give this a go. And they've just launched a second one, which now is expanding to 150 more solutions. They put awards for the first one. And a big part of this was also the fact that this has now led to other things like the announcement of $1 billion AI fund, the announcement of a tripling of AI talent. And of course, we're a Singapore company. So the fact that this is all happening is very exciting for us and what we can do with them as well. But what is really interesting about this is the fact that the winner of the 100 days, 100 solutions is actually a company which is a Web3 company. And this is where I was saying to you, how quickly will the fact that we have generative AI develop these different tools? So you can see here the winner of the Google AI Trailblazer is a company called Meta Fantasy. So this is Meta Fantasy, and they've created this thing called Metacy, right? And the way that Metacy works is very much like vatom. It's a 3D environment where you can see avatars that are running around and connecting up. But what's so interesting about this, and they're only in early development of this, but it's generative AI that does it. So you put a prompt in, Japanese streetwear stores, and it creates the entire world, which you can see just the power of this, that anyone can get created in whatever areas. And whether it's something like, you know, like you say, you know, sovereign AI, being able to travel through time or travel through space, go to a different city, see how things are different in that city. Like here, you have in Japan, and your AI digital humans, like avatars. This is one of our micro schools coming up, was creating your own 3D avatar. You can see here how you can then basically have your guides. Obviously, for us, it's all about education, so how you're learning with them as well. But here you can see things like, you know, creating a store where you can then basically get created the clothes that you want, or tailor making, etc. Creating your own digital personas that can then develop very quickly. This, in your view, is going to do what from a point of view of the speed of growth of the whole 3D metaverse based on where we're now going?
Well, I think it just goes to the previous point that this is a web-based system. You can see the URL on top here. And what's really amazing about this is it plays right into what we want to see happening, which is that every website will have a come inside button. But then that's an enormous amount of websites. How much time and energy does it take to model out all sorts of 3D worlds and what you want to see, and then to take all the material maybe that's on the 2D world and to put it in to a store or to something in the 3D world? And how does all that work? Well, if it could be automated with AI and generative AI concepts, which is obviously happening at breakneck speed, it's phenomenal. And now imagine, which is the key to the vatom approach, which is interoperability, right? Vatom cares much more about the wallet and the identity than about any individual experience. So these guys we love, it's an incredible thing. And you with a total plugin architecture, you can come as yourself. So you can go into a vatom space, right? Be yourself, find something, go into that space and log in and be yourself still and just walk through, right? So it's just like the web. When you go from one website to another website, in the past, before the web, what computer are you on? What terminal are you on? What version of TCP/IP are you on? As opposed to the website shows the website. So that interoperability is key to the proliferation of this into daily life. And so these standards are what we're most excited about, and then how you can have transportable identity. By the way, that goes right back to the other thing, like you're saying with the cultural preservation, because now you are yourself and you can start to express yourself And on a decentralized basis, you can now start to gather that data and then federate it across that. And of course, pay for that data with microtransactions, and then start to use human reinforcement learning to make sure that that data is valid. And then you end up with your reusable models that are actually much more humanistic and local. And so each of these experiences and the interoperability of them plays into the larger picture that we're looking to affect.
Yeah, it's so interesting, just the speed with which this is actually evolving and growing. And I'm going to give you a couple of updates on some of the things that I've been up to while you're in Miami and traveling around to Las Vegas. This year is where we were over the last week. We were in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and then we went out to Kazakhstan. And we already announced, a lot of people have seen the kind of merger activity we're doing together with FatBrain. And we basically, had this vision actually in Dubai, 3 years ago, of building out genius cities. And now is the time when this is taking place. And the whole model, very much like we're talking about in terms of sovereign AI and the Singapore use case, is building this out in now different cities in Kazakhstan, which is an unlikely candidate, but it's where obviously a big part of FatBrain with Prime Source is based. They have a government that is very, very involved in how do we actually make sure that we can create a full ecosystem that is going to basically link, all the schools and universities on the talent side. I say, smart cities about smart technology, but genius cities is about smart humans as well. And how do we actually educate humans in these different areas that then builds into the whole corporate side, how companies then can actually have this ecosystem, this Web3 system. And then obviously the government itself, which has a huge benefit in having a way to build sovereign AI off the back of it. And of course, having Salim also on our board, OpenEXO and the executive programs they run, having the ability for us to be able to have a first stage, which is running an executive program and running the AI courses for our leaders and students. And maybe just to begin with, just impacting maybe 100 students or 100 individuals or companies, then like the likes of the Trailblazer program that Google runs, certification programs, multiplying that by 100 to 10,000, and then multiplying by the third phase, another 100 to 1 million people, where you now have got a full sovereign AI cloud, and then build out the way that they have in Kazakhstan already. And this whole idea that there's already all these different companies that are already doing this from the point of view of technology, but they're all competing for sovereign clouds with each other. And who knows who's going to be the one that's going to come out on top. But one thing for sure is that the government and the companies should have their own ecosystem, regardless of the technology, that enables them to evolve and grow as well. And our goal is to have 100 genius cities within the next 5 years. By the time we get to 2030, when we have our goal of 100 million students. And I think that there's an aspect of all of this, which is that those that start thinking local, so not just thinking about how do I, be global the way that Web 2 was, but how to get local, because that's where the data is. And how do I make sure each person can store their data locally so that they are able to protect and also share just what they want when they want. This is a really critical part of when you're talking about sovereignty. You're talking about more than just, like sovereign nations. You're talking about sovereign individuals. And this really goes back even to that book, the sovereign individual, which is the basis for a lot of what Peter Thiel's philosophies are around how the next power center going forward is the individual person and what they stand for versus even a company, right? Or even a city. That whole growth that you're seeing, could you share more with those that are on here as well, especially because we're bringing on board city leaders that are now taking that concept and bringing it to the area. Salim does the same thing with OpenEXO. He's got his community all around the world where cities are represented by individuals, and then they then connect up with others as well. And I know you've also been very involved, with UAE, with Saudi, to see which are the countries that are the ones being most proactive in this area as well.
Sure. I mean, it's hard to say who's being the most proactive, because it's now clear that it's risen to the top of just about every country's priority list, is how do you effectively apply AI to the most pressing challenges that you have. And so you'll be hard pressed to find a country that isn't now prioritizing. The question is, where do they go for help? Every consultancy on the planet has now shifted to say, we're an expert in this and we'll take you there. But we all know that they're learning as fast as they can. You learn, and then try to put that forward. The experts are not that prevalent. So what would really be helpful is there was a set of proven architectures and proven methodologies and ways that could be reproduced. And I think that's what Genius Group is really doing, because Genius Group is synthesizing the proven work that's already been done and is underway so that it can be reproduced and advanced, right? So you're standing on the shoulders of giants each time it happens again, with I think real metrics of success, and that's what I'm really excited to be part of, and that comes along with a lot of venture opportunity, because you see, like Microsoft in that article that you put up there says, we understand that the sovereign nations need to have sovereign clouds and need to have sovereign data by law that can't leave the country. And then at the same time, you have two problems with that. One is the open source models are really what's needed, right? So you don't want to be pushed to use OpenAI where it's not appropriate. You need to have your own model in your own data center for a large degree, and then some of that can be in cloud, but it can't be in a cloud that isn't resident in your physical geography. Now, Microsoft done an incredible job in expanding Azure, as is Google with GCP, as is Amazon with AWS, but it's a big world and they're not everywhere. And if you look at how they're deciding to expand, it's a cat and mouse game. It's saying, like, well, how many hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of demand is there before we invest to put that there? So what's needed is really an edge cloud type situation, right? It's a big entrepreneurial opportunity to have local kind of mini AI data processing capability on the edge in all these countries where the big boys aren't yet, and to have that seamlessly interoperable in a kind of policy layer to internal servers that can run sensitive data across. And then there's an entire field called federated learning, where it's both cheaper and more effective from a security perspective to move the compute to the data instead of the data to the compute. So like an example, hospitals. So rather than take all that data from the hospitals and start training models for healthcare, you actually move the compute into the hospital, you do the training there, and then you move this highly compressed set of anonymized trained model capabilities into a federated single capability, I guess you'd say, or a trained model that everyone can benefit from. So each of these techniques are now on fire, just like people are identifying the solutions, knocking them down. And I've never seen such opportunity since the early days of the web, when everybody stopped saying, why should I have a website? And everyone started to say, I want a better one. Nobody is saying anymore, why should I adopt AI, or why should I use Web3 and these technologies? They're saying, how do I do it more effectively, and how do I make sure I do it competitively?
Yeah, and I think you just hit on something which for most people is underappreciated. And anyone here wondering what's the billion-dollar business they can start up, I think that the truth on the basis we are turning everything upside down, and Web 2 was largely around closed source systems using open data, which is where we're getting these tech companies that are now these trillion-dollar businesses. But the whole thing is going on its head. So instead of having open source, instead of having closed source systems, you're having open source systems. And instead of having the idea of open data, you're having closed data, right? So it's all shifting around with the values in the data, and whoever actually has that ability to control and hold that data and then make it much more valuable. And people will go, good, I'm rather going to a place with closed data where I control my data versus a place where who knows what they're doing with my data. And that's at every level. And what's really interesting is how this evolves. I want to touch on this for a moment, because we had our entire community show up for the pre-launch of our alpha version of Genius Teams. And I think some on our community will know very much about this, whereas for others, they'll be brand new to it. But basically, when we went out a week ago and we launched to everybody, the fact that we had already launched our student teams. Student teams is basically where student AI gives any student at university level an entire team of tutors. So again, it's not one AI, it's a whole set of AIs that are actually specialized in different areas. And this took off so fast. Suraj, who is our expert in AI, who built this out. And what's very interesting is, because just the same way as Trailblazers does it at a country level, having these accelerator programs with competitions, we are now running this regularly every quarter. We ran the AI Entrepreneur micro school. And one of the concepts that came out of here is, well, look, if we can do this for students, we're having over 1,000 students a day coming in and actually getting all of this for free, and then from there paying for extra education, then that means, and by the way, it's not just having your AI teachers. This is the inside of Student AI, where you can go to any teacher and have your conversations. It's also all your writer tools. It's basically everything that you need to be building out your dissertations, everything you need to check, is your dissertation got plagiarism in it? All of these different things, going to summarizing YouTube videos, it's all in here. But we said, okay, well, what would happen if we did the same thing for entrepreneurs to have their own C-suite? And people ask for their own famous characters. So talking about values, character, perspective. So you can have Michelangelo, Albert Einstein on your board. You can have Cleopatra. So this is all now launched, and it's mind-blowing the number of people that are coming in and getting their, Mahatma Gandhi can be arguing together with Aristotle. And as a result of this, you've got people seeing AI much more as something which can replicate a human, and then build out your whole your whole company. And we're going to get to a point where this becomes auto, which means they can, not just like say, well, here's how you should design your website, but just go out and design your website for you. And one final thing I'll share on this, because I think this is where it gets very interesting. When we were in Dubai, we met with the GEMS team, and obviously you know them well, Sunny Vaki, who runs GEMS, which is the biggest network of schools within the Middle East. And what is so interesting is when they saw what we were doing, they said, well, look, can you do this for like primary school kids as well? That would be incredible. We could like partner up and do this together. And within a week, we put together a full primary school version, which actually allows you at primary school to be able to build out the whole concept of having your tutors as well as teachers having their own AI assistants, and parents, obviously, to actually really speed up the whole process and link that to the idea of you having your own school portal where all the schools can also build this out as well. So, I know this from the point of view of sovereign AI so far, we've been talking about it in terms of data sets for a human or for a country. But when you start thinking, wait, actually, each AI character that you might meet up with will have also its own data set of character and information and knowledge. So why go learn something if you can send your AI off to learn it, and then it's going to come back with that learning? I'd love for you to share your vision of how vatom, for example, can evolve and build all of this into the whole Web3 environment.
Yeah, so it's a great point. And Roger, let's not forget that the pendulum tends to swing pretty hard, but there's a lot of areas where we have to look at the subtleties. So at first it was like, well, let's keep everything proprietary. Well, let's make everything open. And everyone's like debating which is better, open or proprietary or blah, blah, blah. And what we find is there's situations where things should be open source and free. There are things where you want to keep your data proprietary. And then there's this vast middle ground where you want to keep your data proprietary and make it open, but you want to be able to charge for it more effectively and actually make it open in a metered way with microtransactions for its use. This is where blockchain really comes in as well, because who owns this data? You've seen this lawsuit, right, of like New York Times against OpenAI, and this is going to get more and more frothy in the debate, because at first I was even saying like, well, how could OpenAI possibly be held accountable for learning things? Let's say I learn or you learn things and you're just doing the best you can to regurgitate it. It's compressed like this massive amount of the internet down into this very, very small thing, and it's making these inferences. But the truth is, at the same time, there's like, it's actually saying things that look exactly like you can reverse engineer it and say, well, wait a minute, it's saying what actually was printed here. So it's flawed in that way. And it just reminds us that it's not about should they be allowed to do that. It's about how should people be fairly paid for their work. Artists and writers and painters and designers and every walk of life creates something, and they may want to give it away, but a lot of times we want to encourage people to make a living from their intellectual property, right? And so what I think is going to happen next is two things. One is we're going to see the ability to protect certain types of data and to charge for its use and to track provenance. This song actually came from this data, from this style, from this thing, this, and be able to give microtransactions all the way through. and to use the blockchain to actually verify independently the provenance of that original IP. And the other thing, which I think is mind-blowing to think about, is right now, when you think about what is protectable, you say an artist or writer did this artifact. I made this thing. And now if you want to use this data or this final product, then you should license it or you should pay me something. What's going to happen next is that you can actually use your capabilities and your sensibility and your style to make a protected style.
Right.
So it's not just the end artifact that you're protecting, it's how that artifact was made, and you can charge for that. I may want to decorate my house in the style of this famous interior decorator. I could go try to rip her off by watching things, or I can actually pay a few pennies and get her opinion. So the same way you're saying that these AIs are going to be your companions for your building your companies, et cetera, they're going to be everywhere, and they're going to embody all sorts of IP that we can imbue them with, and then actually get paid. And I think that's the next step to create a vibrant economy out of this trend.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna bring this full circle onto something which I haven't yet shared. Well, or I haven't shared it with you, but I also haven't shared it with any of our community as well, which is something called the AI spectrum. And it really comes off the back of all of these things we've been talking about and people trying to fit all this into a puzzle. We obviously are both going to be at a Monetizing 360 with Peter Diamandis, where he's titled this year's summit the Great AI Debate. So this is actually happening in March. I know a lot of our community members are also connected with this as well. But what's super interesting about this is that he's kind of like organized the experts he have coming in into those that are pro acceleration of AI, those that are kind of in the middle ground, and those that basically are like, hey, we should slow stuff down here. And it's a kind of interesting thing in terms of where everyone sees this whole pathway at the moment. When I was together with the Prime Source team and with FatBrain, which was in Kazakhstan, and I shared a couple of slides with them based on all of their different AI tools. They have an incredible amount of AI tools, and obviously we're building out a lot. You're building out a lot as well. And this whole spectrum and growth towards a singularity. I gave this slide, which is one of my favorite slides about, what happens at the city level when there's a crisis. This was way back 1894, talking about the horse manure crisis, where everyone thought that, London was going to be under, New York's going to be 9 feet of manure. London, estimated in 50 years, it'll be buried under 9 feet. And so, everyone was like, oh, this is the worst problem ever. And of course, cars came along and suddenly there was no horse manure. And sometimes problems get solved at a different level simply because everything shifts at that level too. And one of the big things that people couldn't conceive of is that you could go from 1 horsepower, where all you get is 1 horse, to thousands of horsepower with a car. Same now is happening with humans, right? You can go from 1 human power, which is all we've known, to thousands of human power if one person knows how to harness AI in an army of AI as well. But then to what end or at what level? So when I mentioned the AI spectrum, I'd love to get your perspective of where you see things getting productive, where you see things getting scary. What I put together was something called 8 levels of AI, where we're seeing, when we talk about AI, totally different levels of what could be constructive, but also destructive in what we're doing as well. And I'll just run through this very briefly so everyone gets a sense of it. Number one is what probably everyone has now tried, which is conversation. And that's where you have ChatGPT. What a lot of people don't realize is where this has grown the fastest in terms of startups is in avatars, AI avatars. So this is why we're involved in AI avatars as well. This is Character AI, which is now getting valuations at $5 billion. And it was just a startup 1 year ago. So within 1 year, and you can go speak with Elon Musk as an AI, etc. Massive shift that's taking place in this area. And this is where we kind of started thinking maybe that's where we want to go, but we actually leapfrogged, and I'll show you exactly where we leapfrogged, because we saw things were moving from this first phase very quickly through a second phase, which is everything you've been talking about. We've been talking about data and saying if you can use AI to extract data, so extraction. So a good example of this would be something like Glean, which if people haven't heard of Glean, this is Glean here. They just basically got a $2.2 billion valuation. Speaking with FatBrain, this is a big part of their focus, right? Citigroup, banks, they don't want to share their data, but they want people to be able to actually come in their own team and use that data. So Glean effectively is like Copilot for your own company, where you can actually go in and ask for anything about a particular project, and it just zooms into everything from your Slack messages to your emails in a way that no one's going to allow, Microsoft or Google to come and do. And they're already growing massively, right? So this would be a perfect example of when we talk about extraction. The third stage, which is where we're now seeing a lot of activity and where we're focused, is organization. So this is more than just saying, I'm going to extract some information from what's there. This is where you say, no, we're actually going to reorganize the data for you. You want a list of your top 10 sales prospects? We're going to get it for you. Salesforce Einstein does a really good job of that. You want to find out how to organize your day? We're going to just organize your day for you. So it's just organizing things, not just extracting. So you don't have to do that organization. You save a lot of time. This is what we're doing with our student AI. Okay, you want to organize your studies? We can do that for you as well. But our Genie AI does that now for people to do that on our Genius U. A lot of Prime Source, which is part of FatBrain, a lot of their tools are companies buying into this, and it's growing very, very, very quickly, right? So that's where money's being made right now. However, what gets really interesting is when you go from that to say, hey, you want us to organize your present? What happens when we start organizing your future? So prediction with AI is a huge area. Obviously, the way that Tesla is using this to predict where the car should go or when the car's about to crash. That is critical for basically all success. Man, when you can start predicting stock markets, predicting basically what's going to happen next. And so O9 is a perfect example of that, where O9 now, again, another example of $1 billion business. This is a company that's now worth 3.7 billion. And they'll basically just take all your data and then predict out where your company is now going as a result, what the next steps are you should do. So our C-suite that we've built with Genie teams, the biggest value people will get from it is you put your financials in there, you put your market competitors, and it'll predict what you should do next, what your next product should be, what pricing you should do. So that's the super important part. And where a lot of people are at the moment on the media side, generation, we just saw that with the metaverse. It's like, okay, we're not just going to predict your environments, we're going to create them for you. Canva is a good example. A lot of people are using that already with an entire AI studio, and they don't try and predict what is going to be the best use of AI. They create an app store where others can put it in, and whatever is the most valuable, well, then they're going to be using those as well, and they'll plug into everything there. So we're like, okay, we should be doing that too. But it's one thing to be creating a 2D space versus creating like 3D spaces, which is what we just saw as well. It's a very small step from that to where we go beyond just basically using AI as an interface to AI itself becoming conscious, right? So at automation level, this is where Hugging Face comes in, where AutoGPT is where you can basically take, instead of saying, hey, I'll tell you where to go on holiday, is saying, I'm actually going to book the holiday for you, and I'm going to pay for it, and I'm going to basically confirm it, and I'm going to get your bookings for you. And all of this is where effectively you now have things moving from, conversation and generation to the whole concept of we're going to get the job done for you. Like an AI can go learn for you, and then it can actually go connect to the right people for you, and it can then basically, organize things in such a way that you could effectively start thinking about humans being replicated. Number 7 is replication, some early stages of that. And we're already looking at this to say, how could we do this? Would be something like Humanly, where it isn't just helping HR to hire, but it actually does your interviews for you, right? It actually starts by having conversations at the early stages. It screens the top people. So by the time you actually come on board, it's already got the shortlist, and the people that are getting onboarded, getting trained, they're already getting all of this without a human even being involved. So you can now see, wow, people are going to start getting replaced when this happens. But you can say, well, at least it's only happening online until you get to the third one, which is where you get to total elimination, which is where we get to the scary bit. And we're already seeing the likes of this company, Figure AI, which is with the Tesla bot, saying, okay, what happens when a robot can do everything? And it's pretty mind-blowing that everyone from NVIDIA to Jeff Bezos to OpenAI have all funded this company with 675 million just at the end of February to basically be looking at how do you actually replace us altogether with a very, very different future, right? So obviously we're going from, through the singularity to doomsday scenario. So we don't spend too much time there. But I would love for you just using this concept of a spectrum where there's different areas where Web3 can be having the best use cases, and where entrepreneurs like the ones in this community can be thinking, which part of AI am I actually focusing at? And just to give you an idea of where we are with our merger and with Genius, we have been sitting here. We're about to move from this to this. When I say about, I'm saying the next 24 months, where I think all of the big billion-dollar businesses are going to be showing up here. and a lot of it, all of it's going to be Web3 based because of trust. Yeah, I'd love to have your view together with your view of whether you think we're going too slow, too fast, based on AI in general.
Well, first of all, I hope that as you move along your trajectory here, you'll stop at number 7.
Yes.
Why don't we just put a little line there where genius is
Yes.
going to come to fruition? But I do like where you're going. Look, I think there is no way to say we should move slower in the areas where AI could offer so much benefit to humanity, new drug discovery, better proteins, new ways to educate people, to bring people out of poverty, and to give them a way to upskill themselves. There's so much that is happening that is kind of mind-blowing, and in terms of also just new anti-pollution and CO2 removal technologies. It's really incredible. So you don't want to inhibit that, but at the same time, when we talk about moving too fast, I think we just have to step back every once in a while, even as we're continuing to innovate, and say, what is our goal, and what are we trying to do? And one of the things we're trying to do, I believe, is to give humans superpowers, not to replace humans. And this idea of elimination, I think, is a scary word, because it's not even valid in terms of what we're trying to do. When you make a humanoid robot, you're trying to eliminate tasks that would be otherwise that a human really shouldn't be doing, like running into a burning building and getting a baby out or something, or doing things in factories, moving heavy boxes from one place to another, reproducing amazing recipes at scale. There's interesting things humans, that robots can do that I think are incredible. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to fall into the trap that I do see happening right now, which is humans have a biological necessity to connect to other humans. We can say that it's not as efficient, or it can be done other way, and you'll have AI girlfriends and AI boyfriends, and you're going to have all sorts of enticements for that. And it's going to get away from us really fast because of the convenience factor and because of the expertise that AI has to convince us of things. So our brains are these kind of like things floating in a black box here, and it only takes in the input it has, and it can easily be tricked. That's why magicians are so powerful. Every time I see a rabbit come out of a hat, I'm like, how did he do that? Well, the truth is, we don't really know how AI works to some degree. Like, the explainability of some of it is just not there yet. But what we do know is that it's already incredibly convincing. And about 40% of the bots in the world right now that you think are talking to humans are already AIs, and they're already influencing you to make certain purchasing decisions in dialogues that you think are actually with humans. And so imagine what's going to happen as these AIs get more and more powerful, or fall into the wrong hands and start to disconnect us even farther from what's most important, is our connections to each other and to nature. And I think we should start to think about what are we doing to leverage these tools to bring us back to the things that drive purpose and meaning in our lives. And right now, we have an opportunity to I think, stem the tide on some of the negative trends and redirect them to a world we want to live in.
And that's going to be a really big challenge. I mean, that's why the likes of sovereign AI, the likes of what makes something human focused is so important. And within education, that's one of the big things that I've been sharing with our community, is that at the time of the Renaissance, when it was a huge, massive growth in science with Galileo, right? It was a huge, massive growth in art with like Michelangelo and Da Vinci, and where the Medicis, who had the power because they had the money to make a focus and make a difference, they created a whole new education system. So we all know that our education system today is based on calculation and memorization and literacy, all three things. AI beats us at all of them, right? Whereas when we go back to the Renaissance base, where they had the trivium, which was self-awareness, right? Like, how much are we aware of who we are? And if anything is doing something which isn't making us more self-aware, being an entrepreneur is all about being self-aware. It's like, if you're not self-aware, you're not going to last long. So learning who you are and where you want to go, And then the second thing, which is self-mastery, which is how do you become a better version of yourself? If you're trying to be more of someone else, AI is going to take you in the wrong direction. If you're trying to be more of who you are, which means being a better version of yourself as a human, well, then AI can do a lot of great work. And the third one is self-expression, which is not having a job for productivity, which is where we're all out of a job, but a job for self-expression, which is if you want to be an artist, if you want to be a musician, if you want to help your kids at school, if you want to go out, build $1 billion business, whatever expresses who you are most effectively, that's your biggest contribution to the planet. If we can actually build that into this whole concept, which is the concept of genius, igniting your genius, that becomes something which puts us in the center of all of this going forward as well. So, I mean, just like as a final, because it's been an amazing, interesting conversation, and I'm going to be very curious, looking back a year from now, wherever we are on the planet, to basically, you know, the contents of what we're talking about here. What would you say as kind of final words of wisdom from your side to everyone listening who might be a bit frightened, or might be a bit overwhelmed, might be a bit questioning as to where they go with their business and what they're doing as the best way to be approaching this whole new age that we're in?
Well, you know, my belief is don't be afraid, get excited about the potential here and get motivated to leverage this to achieve things that were only possible in your wildest dreams just years ago. And that's my true belief, and we see it every day. It's so exciting, the ideas that we're seeing come to fruition, and how each of us have the opportunity to enhance our own abilities, to learn instruments better, to communicate more interestingly, to build businesses that we couldn't do before and reach more people. So I would encourage people to really get out there. You showed that list of individuals that are going to be at the Abundance 360 conference. Each one of those people, whether they're on the side of optimism, the middle, or caution, they are absolutely brilliant people. I've had the privilege to meet, I think, just about all of them, and each of them have something to offer that I don't think is going to end up overly scaring you into submission, but might actually motivate you. I mean, look, Emad Mostak is one of the first people that I heard make the pronouncement that there be no programmers in 5 years. Well, if you're a programmer, does that mean that you're going to be like running for the hills and you should be scared? No, it means that you should get motivated to use these tools to do the work of 10 programmers and to be all the different things ideas that you had before that you didn't have time, that you can do. Again, Ramin in the lower left, he's got something called liquid AI. My gosh, it's 1,000 times faster than ChatGPT. Imagine what you could do with that, or 1,000,000 times faster in certain types of parameters or certain types of use cases. What would that mean for your business if you could harness that power and could talk to someone like that or hear them? I mean, Alex Wisner-Gross is probably one of the greatest geniuses on the planet. The list goes on. And so I just think that we're in an opportunity now to learn, stand on the shoulders of giants, and become taller ourselves.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Eric. It's been super interesting. Looking forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks in LA. For everyone who's on here, do know that we have our real life version. We have our next AI micro school that's coming up, which is all about avatars. And then we have also got our AI day that's happening in Los Angeles as well. Come join our community, be part of it. Michelle is going to come on now to basically go through the awards of our community and next steps that you can take. And if you think this is a kind of virtual background, it's actually me at our resort in Bali, where at the end of the day, no matter what virtual experiences we create, there's nothing that beats the real world, right? So thank you very much. Really appreciate having you on. Okay,
cheers. Great to be here. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the March Jam call. And here are the results for this month. As you guys know, I always present this. So here we go. If we take a look, March has been a very interesting month, well, February, so that we are now sitting in March. These awards are designed for our partners, our community, and our customers that are in the metaverse. And we've got the different prizes that we give away on a monthly and quarterly basis, which the team will reach out to you. And these are our nominations for this month. So we have Lynn Ko and her team, Nina, one of our level 2 partners, and we have Rutka and Ataru, you can see. So we've got them nominated this month. And ultimately, Lynn Kao, she's the founder and CEO of vatom Beauty Academy. It's amazing working with her, and they've been helping style-savvy students get hands-on training for many, many years. And she's been in the industry for a long, long time. And really what's been happening is she came to Bali in October with her son, actually, Caden, and she put together a plan and she started working on it. And really what's happened is from the beginning of the year, we've been touching base every couple of weeks to make sure that we actually change her business model and that she follows the procedures that Roger's been teaching. So they've been adding on new products in their suite, and they've been setting up monthly targets. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Lynn and her team, because they've actually been expanding into the aesthetics market and the nail salon space, and their numbers are increasing month on month. So this is why I wanted to recognize them for this month, because it's really a great, great thing that they're doing, and they're keeping consistent and they're making sure that everything happens. They also all joined our micro school in January and have been applying the AI techniques as well. So this is a good thing. Secondly, I'd like to nominate Nina. Nina is really a performance consultant, flow consultant. She's a certified high performance coach. She definitely does a whole bunch of amazing things. She helps people get into flow, and she works with entrepreneurs and leaders. Now, in this particular space, she attended Performance Consultant Live in February in Bali with us and a lot of our other level 2 partners. And she rocked the program. She basically stepped up, she participated, she contributed, she excelled in her flow, she networked with everybody. And I'm really super proud of the choices that she's made to make this go forward. So well done, Nina. The team loved having you there. Last but not least is Radka at Tyru. So Radka is the founder and CEO of Tyru, and this is a purpose-driven international leadership company. And they have this goal to create 1 million leaders by 2027. So it's a really interesting relationship, because we've been working together for a long time. And it's been over 10 years that she's been a performance consultant. She used to come, I remember one of my first events, she was actually the mentor at WDM. Anyway, they've finally delivered over 7,000 Talent Dynamics tests. She's secured a brand new four-year Talent Dynamics partnerships with us, and she's one of the leading partners in the space for this particular market. So they focus on definitely international training and developing leaders. All right. So, and the winner is Nina. So congratulations, Nina. The team will be in contact, and we'll be sending over your prizes. And we look forward to seeing you share all of the learnings that you had while you were in Bali. So guys, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations to everybody, and I look forward to seeing you on the next call.